Hey guys, welcome to the project tonight. Why don't you go ahead and stand with us for worship here.
Love has everything from now till then. Be a song I sing for you. And don't have a final breath that might be filled with praise for you. And everything from now till then, be a song I sing for you. And I have made my choice, I've set my course. Oh, to you, love has marked my life, so I will give my life. Oh, to I've made my choice, I've set my course. Oh, to love has marked my life, so I will give my life. Oh, to choice, I've set my course. All to you, all to you. Your love has marked my life, so I will give my life. All to you, all to you.
Well, again, welcome to the project tonight, guys. My name is Brett. This is Jay, and we're stoked you guys decided to be here with us. Also, just want to say hey to everyone who's tuning in online right now. We're glad that you guys are watching from home. But you guys can go ahead and take a seat.
First piece of seat.
But like when I watch that, and I don't usually I'm a little cynical, especially when it comes to like videos like that, but when I was looking for something, I was like, oh, that kid's hungry. Like it really broke my heart. And I think obviously there's no lack of things that break our hearts, so that when we look around at the world around us, we're like, yeah, that's something that breaks my heart. But I want to ask you that tonight. What is it that you're aware of right now? What is that one thing? What is that issue, that situation in the world or locally, or that you just know people tend to go through that breaks your heart? What is that thing that it terrorizes you when you put your head on your pillow at night, when you think about that's happening, or you've seen it happen, or when you've seen it happen and now you're thinking about it regularly? You can't get that image of that injustice out of your mind. The fact is, there's no lack of it. We look around at society, maybe even just if you've taken any distance of a drive to get here tonight, you probably drove past something or have become aware of something in the last 24 hours, whether it's in person or on Twitter or whatever your social media of choice is. You've seen something that breaks your heart. It's happening everywhere. Racism, social injustices like sexual inequality, gender inequality, whatever it is, there's so many things that we can see and that we become aware of, especially in the last year. And the fact is, it's not just something that's happening on another continent or anywhere far, far away, although it's happening there as well. We're realizing slowly but surely, and in the last year pretty quickly, that it's happening in our backyard. And before you freak out and you're like, oh man, Jeff's going to go on some political rant, I'm actually not going to. As much fun as that would be, I don't think that's my purpose here tonight. I want to talk to you about our DNA. Again, we've been going through our series the last couple of weeks, or the last, this entire month of March, we're going through our DNA, going each week through one of the core key outcomes that are important to us here at the Project. Our vision is to see 1% of the young adults in Edmonton call the Project home. But these 4 things that we started last week with and will be continuing to are the outcomes that will happen as we continue to be successful at that. It's what it's going to take to achieve our vision. It's what it's going to take to be Jesus to our community, to Edmonton. So this week, I want to go through number 2, and that is this: to alleviate suffering and injustice in the world and city around us. Now, you're probably like, yeah, Jeff, that's great. We get that. That's something that we care about too. It doesn't take a really great person to think that that's a good idea, that we should do that. I think on a baseline, we'd agree that's something we want to do. But the fact is, here at the Project, we want to just hammer down this week on that we are committed to this across the board. This is a part of the core things that make the Project who we are, and that's because we are a reflection of a Jesus-based life. The Project is a church. Again, big shock. There's a cross on the roof of the building you came into. If you're surprised you just entered a church, can't help you that much. But the Project is a church, and we reflect Jesus. We are a community of people that subscribe to a Jesus-based life. And obviously, if you're here in person or you're here online, that's fine if you don't subscribe to that. You're welcome to be a part of this, to track with us in community, but that is who we are, and we don't make any apologies about that. And so when we follow Jesus, we go to the Bible, because we know here that when you look to the Bible, through the Bible, Jesus shows us his character. He shows us how he was. Jesus is the example of a perfect life lived well. And we want to be more like him. That's why we call it a Jesus-based life. So when we go to the Bible, we see what Jesus does, and we find out how we should reflect. So through the lens of injustice, right, we would all agree now, problem in the world around us, we need to intervene. Something has to change. We can't keep on this trajectory, because there's all sorts of things that each one of us would identify with as the number one, but there is no limit to things that are problematic in the world around us, in our city and in our world. So what would Jesus do? What would Jesus' response be? So I want to go to the book of Matthew, and it's the second half of the Bible, which is the New Testament, so which is the part of the Bible from when Jesus was born on. And Matthew would have been somebody who had a first-person account of what Jesus had done. So he's telling the story through what he saw with his own eyes. And it says in Matthew 8:1-4 this: when Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I'm willing," he said, "be clean." Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them." So this, if you've tracked with Jesus at all, if you've read any of the Bible or followed in church, you've probably heard Jesus did miracles. He did lots of them, and there's a lot of accounts of that as we read through the Bible. That he was God, therefore he had the power to heal things. He healed blindness. He brought someone back from the dead. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that logically he could heal something like leprosy. But let's go into a little bit of a backstory, because I don't think a lot of us have any first-hand encounters with leprosy. It's not a real relevant thing, at least in North America. It still does exist, believe it or not, in the world. A small pill that's very inexpensive actually has largely eradicated it from most of the world. But back 2,000 years ago on Earth, when Jesus was walking physically on the earth, this was a huge issue. It was a big, big deal, and people would get it, and leprosy is a horrible disease. This is something that will actually begin to cripple you. You lose feeling in your nerves, and eventually your hands and feet and your limbs become deformed and even start to fall off, and the injuries because you can't feel anything. You look bad. You don't look good. It's visible, it's noticeable, and it's something that there's no hiding. People would know if you have leprosy. It's not like COVID where you're asymptomatic. There is no asymptomatic leprosy. But to make it even worse, There was a social implication and a psychological implication that came from that on anybody that had leprosy, because we didn't treat them well. They were treated as beyond, not even, I want to say second-class citizens. I'm talking about like less than human. They were treated as they looked. They were treated in the way that the like monsters, because that's how the people saw them. They had become these monsters. They thought that they were super infectious, and if they were even near them, they were going to get leprosy. And there was nothing much there was no social programs for them. There was no health programs. And actually what the solution was, and this is horrific, through any lens, this is horrific. But what they would do is they would go and tell them that, and force them to the outside of the city gates. Like they had to sit. You have leprosy? No, you don't get health care. You got to go sit, or you can't even come into the city. You have to sit at the gate and you can suffer there. And like that's bad enough. That's appalling. That's an injustice in the sense of just what I described. But when you think about what they would do if you came near them, that's even worse. They would come near you. If you came near somebody, if there's someone right here, and they're even within the vicinity, I'm not talking social distancing, I'm like within eyesight, they would look at the person and go, unclean, unclean, scream at them, judge them, call them out, because they were so disgusting. They were such a level below them that they had to call it out and just imagine what that would do to you. Imagine the thing that you're the most insecure about in your life, the thing that you had no control over, that you had this thing, this deformity, this disease that not only is causing you pain, it's caused your family to abandon you, it's caused your entire friend group to abandon you, your wife, your husband, your spouse, whatever it is, you are completely lonely. Nobody has even physically touched you, you have not been hugged, no one has touched your hand in years and years, and this is not going to get better because you're just going to keep getting more and more deformed through this painful disease until you eventually have release through death. Talk about a hopeless situation. And then we see Jesus, and Jesus steps in here, and this leper, who you got to think, this guy had guts. Like, he walked up to Jesus, and he actually, like, gets close to him. He's at the end of his rope, and he's like, man, I got nothing to lose here. And he says, Jesus, will you heal me? And what does Jesus do? Jesus obviously doesn't scream, unclean, unclean, get back to the gates, you leper. Like, that's not the way to do it. But what Jesus does is he reaches out and he touches him. Think about that for a second. Think about everything that I just told you about the situation. The last thing that you would expect someone to do is to touch this leper, is to reach out and physically touch that person. Imagine what goes through that leper's mind as even just the hand extends, as he feels the physical touch for the first time. I don't know how many of us went a long time in isolation with COVID, or we didn't hug a family member, where we felt incredibly lonely. And I know the first time that we hugged somebody, maybe you haven't in the last year, and you're still feeling that way now, but know that feeling. Remember that this is way beyond that with way less hope. And they felt the touch of somebody. Jesus touched them, made that connection. Just that simple. And this person was healed. And obviously, yeah, we were talking about like the miracle is there, right? The miracle is legitimate. The miracle like is cool, and it's beyond science, and that's what makes it a miracle. But the fact is that there was more than a physical healing that just happened at that moment. There was this psychological and emotional connection that happened there. There was healing. There was way more that went into this than just the medical side. This person had not felt loved in a long time. And suddenly, because they were healed, they were able to go back to work. They were able to go back and see their family. They were able to go and maybe, like, if they weren't married, to go get married, to live their life, to actually live out a normal life, like the freedom that came from that. It was beyond physical. It went into every element of that leper's life, all because Jesus was willing to reach out and touch that person and heal that person. But here's one more thing I want to bring out. We're all on board with that. Jesus, it's great. He did an amazing thing. Man, I would do that, right? If I could, if I was God, and if I was Jesus, and if I knew that I could just heal anybody, I'd go around healing everybody. I don't care if they have leprosy. It's just free healings for everybody, right? There was a significant risk to what Jesus was doing. Think about the social implications of being near a leper. Think of the social implications. Think of the cost that could have been there. You got to think as he's reaching out to touch this leper that there's this kind of like hush in the crowd, this tension of what's he doing? This is social suicide. He's going to get leprosy in their mind. He's going to have to sit at the gates. Like, this is not the norm. This is not socially acceptable. This is not okay. He's risking social clout, not even just social clout, but social acceptance. He's risking everything, his health. Everything he's ever owned, everything he's ever had. Not that he had that much, he was constantly just traveling, but he was risking his life. There was a potential cost. But Jesus knew this, that no risk was too great to achieve the mission, to achieve the vision, to achieve his calling of what he was there on earth to do. That nothing was too great of a risk to try and make the world around him better, to alleviate the suffering that he saw in that moment. Not just for the physical, but also just in his grander plan as well. So how does this impact us? Are we really facing lepers right now? No, not really. Like, we're not really seeing a lot of leprosy around us. We've experienced a lot of contagious diseases, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about. I want to talk about the lepers that we experience metaphorically in our lives. Who is the group or the people or the situation that would represent that leper in your daily life or in your weekly life? What is the injustice around you? What is the impoverished? What is the lesser than in society, the run down, the downtrodden, the meek, the weary? What are the people, what are the groups that need you, that need us as the project, as the church, as people who subscribe to a Jesus-based life to step up and to make a difference? Because that is inherent to a Jesus-based life. We can't separate it. We cannot just separate that and say, you know what, I like all this Jesus stuff, I like church, I like coming here to the project, but you know what, I don't really have time for other people. That is not you can't do that. That is a part, that is baked into a Jesus-based life. And here's the thing, we're great in North America, we're great in society at recognizing issues. Like I said, there's not really anything that any person here that doesn't have a fill in the blank, right? What is that blank situation? What is that world issue? What is that social issue, political issue? Whatever it is for you, that it's all going to be a little bit different, but we can kind of pick what those would be in popularity, in media, and all those different things. But that's not what makes us just, that we know that there's problems. Because while we're great at seeing it, well, we're great at exposing it, and here's the hardest part. We're great at being offended by it. That doesn't make us just. We're offended a lot, and we should be, because anything that offends God should offend us. And injustice, racism, poverty, inequality, all those things, those offend God. But if we're going to follow Jesus, it has to offend us too, and that's built into us. That's God's Holy Spirit speaking to us and saying, this isn't right, there needs to be correction there. But your offense doesn't change the world. Because you acknowledge injustice does not change the world. It doesn't mean you're just. And here's the fact. To truly love justice and alleviate suffering in the world around us, it's going to cost us. If we're just stopping at being offended and acknowledging things, we can't just sit on that. We have to decide at some point that it's going to cost us, that we're going to step out of our comfort and do something to make a difference in the world around us, to step in on the behalf of these issues that we're able to. What do you care about? I'll tell you what, so I'm a millennial, and I've been reading a lot lately that you Gen Zs are pretty hard on us for our skinny jeans and our emojis and making memes about us, but let me just throw something out there. We invented the internet. You don't want to start a meme war with us, because we'll come back. But I am very aware of the flaws of millennials, because for the longest time, they would always say, if you want to connect with millennials, you have to, connect on the social justice issues, like that's what we care about. Don't get me wrong, we absolutely did, and we do to this day. We're just not willing to do anything about it, right? We'll talk about it. We'll hashtag pray for, hashtag pray for this, hashtag pray for that. We'll acknowledge it, we'll post it, we'll share a link on Facebook or whatever. I know, that ages us too. We use Facebook still, some of us. But MySpace, all those different things, or Twitter, whatever it is, we'll go on there and we will hashtag it to death. Oh, we care. We'll get a bracelet with that says that we care about it. We'll get a t-shirt. do people still wear Tom's shoes? Anyone know what Tom's is? Is that gone? I haven't seen them in forever, but these like paper shoes that we would all wear because an extra pair would go to Africa, and which is great. We would give kids that need it in Africa shoes, but we would just wear these shoes, and that was what it was more about, right? This like wearable charity. It wasn't based out of justice. We weren't really doing anything about it. We'd wear these Tom shoes, we'd wear t-shirts, but we would pass by the homeless person who's suffering and not buy them a sandwich or whatever it is. I don't have all the solutions, but we wouldn't step out of our comfort zone. We actually wouldn't do anything and get involved with an organization that's making a real difference, but we sure would talk about it over a hipster cup of coffee. Acknowledgement is good. Offense is a part of the process. But stepping out into discomfort and making a difference through something that will cost you is where we are going to be like Jesus. That's where we actually change the world. And I keep hearing that your generation, that Gen Z, cares so much about it enough that you're willing to actually step out, starting organizations at 18 years old, nonprofits, doing things, just actually stepping out and doing something. And I hope that's true, and I'm believing that's true. Because if the project is going to change the world around it like we care about, we need you. I can't do this by myself. We can set up initiatives, and we're going to talk about that. We can partner with people and give you tangible steps, because it's not always easy to just say, change the world. Well, where do I start, right? Where do I start? We're going to give you some options. We're going to talk about that. But the fact is, we're going to have to make a decision to do it as a team, as a community. I always say when I'm up here, Jeff isn't the project. I'm the lead pastor. I lead it. Our staff, our pastors, we're the pastors of the project. But the project is all of us. We carry this weight together. We do this together. We are a part of the solution together. If you guys aren't here, if you aren't active, if you aren't moving, if you aren't doing things in your community, we do nothing. It takes you. We do this together. So how do we do that? I want to hit on one more thing before we bring up some of the different groups that are with us today. Because like I said, for my generation, it was a lot about wearable charity. It was a lot, not that nobody did anything good, not that nobody cared. I'm not going to paint, everyone with that brush, but the fact is that we would spend a lot of time doing that. And there is a tension that's part of being a human being that says, we want to make everything about us. I talked about last week preferences. And because we are we're born with this consumeristic attitude. We want to know, what can this do for me? And even if that's not our primary goal, in the back of our mind, we are selfish in a sense. And we'll always read into that on some level. So even when we're helping people, we start to think, I'm handing out food to the homeless. Well, you know what I could do? I could let the news know so that they can come and record my group doing this. Or, I want everyone to know I should post it on my story that I'm involved with this or that. And it becomes this thing where we're actually trying to gain clout through this. We're trying to show the world, look how just I am. Look at me, everybody. I'm so caring. I care about everybody. And it's not that that's bad, but Jesus actually talks about that too. It's not bad to help and for people to see it, but it's bad if we're going to have that be the lens that we're looking to try and live through, because that's just insecurity and self-promotion. But Jesus says in Matthew 6, and it's going to be on your screen, watch out, don't do good deeds publicly to be admired by others, for you will lose the reward from your Father in heaven. And he's not saying hide it. He's not saying well, if you're gonna, hand out, and I'm just picking this as an example, hand out sandwiches to the homeless, wear a trench coat and pull it out like a drug dealer, here's a sandwich, everybody. Don't be weird about it. Don't be awkward. Don't hide it. But if your perspective and your goal is for people to see you doing good things, give your head a shake. And I've done it. I loved it. Everyone wants to look just. You look like a great person. And even if you are a great person, it's it doesn't mean you're not. It doesn't mean you're not doing the right thing. But why are you doing it? What is the why of the situation? What is your motivation? Is it that we want to make the world better, or you want to look better to the world? Right? And I'm not saying that's us, but man, that's me sometimes. So what is it for you? What is your motivation? And until we get the right motivation, we ain't going to change the world. We're not even going to change our own backyard. We see injustice, we're offended by it. That doesn't make us just. Acknowledging injustice is not making a difference. Loving justice is acting on its behalf. Knowing there's a cost and being okay with that. Financially, with your time, with your resources. It should cost you. Jesus, it cost him everything. Eventually he was killed for it. Jesus never had a house to live in. He was just like nomadically traveled and changed the world around him. Socially, he was always picked on because he was hanging out with the wrong people. He was touching lepers. He was having conversations with prostitutes and thieves and tax collectors. And that is what we need to be willing to do to alleviate suffering and injustice in the world around us and in our city. So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot, if you've been here, we talk about when we're talking about giving or financially contributing to what we do here at the project, we talk about a couple of different organizations that, and amongst many, but three have kind of come up because our focus is to be for Edmonton, to live local, be a part of our city. We want the question to be always yes. If we ask, if we disappeared, if the project just vanished from Edmonton, would they even notice? We want to be like, man, Edmonton recognizes us. Again, not for clout, but because they would recognize that we did something that was important, that we actually were changing the world around us. So we've picked these three groups, and we're going to bring up the first one in just a second here. And they are people and groups that reflect the vision of the project. All these things we're talking about that are localized and actually boots on the ground and creatively as it gets through COVID, trying to change the world around them and actually help people long term, all through the lens of a Jesus-based life, but just for anybody that needs help. So the first person we want to bring up, one of our partners, is a friend of mine, someone I've known for a long time. His name's Andrew Hansen. He was the youth pastor here for a long time. I volunteered under him. He's a good friend. He's like the first person I send any meme to. You know, there's always that one person that no matter the meme, you feel safe sending it to them. Andrew's that guy for me. And we talk all the time. We actually realized today that this is the first time we've seen each other in person in like 15 months. So that was pretty exciting for us. But just give a warm welcome to Andrew and Youth Rise.
This is awesome. This is a great opportunity to just be able to come and share. I know the rest of the groups feel the same way. So thank you for having us. This is a really important topic, honestly. And I want to take you maybe back a little bit to some of the history of how Youth Rise was started. Youth Rise is new. 2020, January, we started. So we started in the middle of a pandemic. So it's been it's been kind of wild. So this started when I was a youth pastor here at the church. In 2006, I came here to pastor youth. So Jeff was actually like in grade 12, I think, back then, in the youth group, which is hard to believe. I loved working with young people. I loved working with the teenagers in the church. I loved the aspect of discipleship, the aspect of working with parents and leading young people into Christ-like relationship. To me, that was so exciting. But as Jeff was saying earlier, there was something that kind of broke my heart. There was something that actually caused my gut to kind of twist up inside. As I was pastoring, I kept looking around out in our community, and I would see young people wandering around. Young people seemingly walking around with no purpose. And the thing is, like, we'd be in there, in here having a service, over 100 people, God is moving, the Holy Spirit's moving, we're praying. And I kept being haunted by this reality that outside there, people who are dealing with significant struggle and trauma don't even care. Number one, they don't care that we're in here, and number two, they don't know that we're in here.
Yeah.
So for so often, it's like, we can pump ourselves up, this is so awesome, and don't get me wrong, it is amazing, and lives are transformed and changed. But I kept being haunted by this reality. And then I was driving this one young man home. He was 16 years old, and this one night it felt like everything changed, and I had to do something about this. And this young guy, 16 years old, dropped him off at his house. His mom's an alcoholic. She has mental health issues. They live in poverty. His dad's been in and out of prison. He hasn't seen his dad, doesn't know his dad. I remember dropping this kid off into that house and almost weeping when I left. And just being like, what hope does a kid like that have? What hope does a kid like that have? Like, nice life, nice fair life that's just handed to them. Remember, what hope does a kid like that have unless a group of people comes around him, surrounds him, starts speaking his future out for him, removing barriers for him.
Yeah.
And so to me, it felt like everything changed. And I left church ministry. We still go to this church. We're very involved in this church. Left church ministry for nonprofit work. Started a youth center in Millbourne, and if you know Millbourne, Millbourne's kind of like one of the tougher areas in Millwoods. A lot of low-income families. We started working directly with a lot of youth who face significant struggle, significant trauma. So we started this youth center, and then just recently, I thought God is calling me to even something bigger. to impact our whole city, to impact areas like Clairview and downtown and, Castle Downs, Londonderry. So we already have plans. We're going to plant new youth centers in these areas. And so what we do is we get a presence in the community, and we do wraparound support. We recognize that there's a lot of barriers in young people's lives. So we do things like free tutoring. We do things like job preparation. We do free sports. We give them free clothes, all that stuff. But it's all done through the lens of Christian discipleship. And it also is done in like a fun way. Like we have a youth center, kids come. And it's been really an honor to see hundreds and hundreds of young people from that community come to know the Lord and come to have some barriers removed, go to school, all these things. So we kind of see it as, it breaks my heart that a young person can grow up in a reality that their life has almost been set out for them, and we want to speak life into them and speak their future for them. So that's largely what we do, and there's a lot of other things that we do too. But I want to be, if you want to come and talk to me afterwards, I'm going to be outside. We're not allowed to be in the lobby. I'll be outside, and we're handing out some postcards as well. But if you're kind of interested in wanting to get involved, then come find me.
What is Adeara? Adeara is a long-term accredited addiction recovery center in Edmonton for women and their children. Our addiction recovery programming is unique in a few ways. Our programming is long-term and community-based. While many programs in Alberta range from a few weeks to a few months, our residential programming goes for a minimum of 6 months, up to 2 or even 3 years. This allows us to help our residents not only break down destructive systems in their lives, but also build up new ones that prepare them for a better future. Our center is one of the few in Canada that accepts women and their young children. Most addiction recovery centers don't have the space or resources for children to live with their moms, which means that many single mothers struggling with addiction have limited options for recovery. We give our residents opportunity for recovery with children, work to reunite families, and help repair broken relationships. Our work is accredited and research-based. It's important to us to have the right people with the right training to help lift our women out of addiction. We're accredited through the Canadian Accreditation Council, the nationally recognized leader in standards excellence. Adeara is also a licensed service provider under the provisions of the Part 1 Mental Health Services Protection Act to provide residential addiction treatment services in Alberta. Our mission is faith-based. Our residents come to our center knowing that Adeara is designed to treat the whole person from a bio-psycho-social spiritual perspective. We seek to create strong, spiritually developed women who live in the freedom of God's forgiveness and know His loving purpose for their lives. Here at Adeara, we grow forward together.
You know, Andrew, when you were talking about that youth that you were taking home, and as you were dropping him off, you knew that he was going into a home where his mom struggled with alcohol and his dad maybe was, I don't know if he was incarcerated or what the situation was, but I was thinking, those are the women that sometimes we get to support. Adeara provides a place for women who are struggling with addiction, find freedom from that addiction, and they can bring their children. They don't have to choose being a mom or being present or trying to be present and recovery. They can do both, and we get to support that, and it's such a privilege. I know I only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to quickly let you know how you can get involved. I would be surprised if not everyone in this room was somehow touched by addiction, whether you know somebody or there's somebody in your family, and you know the effects of it. And sometimes we just don't know what is it that I can do to support this ministry. We are about changing communities through changed lives. So I have 4 ways that you can help us out. Number 1, I was going to say follow us on Facebook, but apparently that's probably not where you're going to be. But you can follow us on Instagram. Share us with your friends. We need to be made, we need to expose who we are to our city, to our province. Adeara is still not that well known. We used to be called the Edmonton Dream Center, and so we're still working at bringing awareness to what we're doing in the city because we really strongly believe in what we're doing and the freedom that women are experiencing through our program. So you can share us on Instagram. Secondly, you could become a monthly donor. As you're aware, we're a charity. We exist because of the generosity of churches like Hope City, and individuals, businesses, foundations. So anybody that wants to get on board with us monthly is just, we welcome that. And we're so grateful for any donations that people do give. The third one is thrifting. We have, since July, we have taken over a thrift store, and we've called it More Than a Fad. And it's a fantastic place if you're looking for a find. And maybe you have things you want to donate or you want to volunteer. More Than a Fad will give you that opportunity, and we're actually opening our second location just next to your Hope City and Kingsway there. We're 2 doors away from it. So we have 2 locations which you can get involved in, and that's, you can check out More Than a Fad online as well. And then the fourth one, which I know that you're all going to be really interested in. We have fundraisers every year, multiple fundraisers. One of them is our signature event. It's called the Leap of Faith. How many of you have heard of the Leap of Faith? About 4 of you. Okay, so that's great. So what it is that we invite people to sign up to jump out of an airplane. Yeah, you get to free fall for about a minute at about 200 kilometers an hour from 10,000 feet. It's fantastic. I've done it once, and I'll never do it again. But I encourage you to try it. And so you do land nicely with a parachute. It's quite peaceful once you get through that free fall. So what it is that this event raises funds for Adeara. And the reason we call it the Leap of Faith is because it represents what our ladies do every single day. You know, I get to see firsthand the courage that it takes for a woman to come into our doors and to participate in a program that they have no idea what it's going to look like, and the restrictions and the rules that they have to face when they're used to a chaotic life coming into structure. That's a huge deal. So this leap of faith represents really the leap of faith that the women take every day. And we'd like to encourage you. Talk to Kristen, who is right over here. She might even be able to be in touch with you down the road. We're encouraging Jeff actually to jump, and we would like you to encourage him and create a team. See, I think there's support already. And so that's just something that's fun to do. That'll be happening in June. So those are just a few ways that you can get involved with us. I'd be happy to chat with any of you outside there at any time, or you can email me or check us out online, and would love to answer your questions. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Shiloh is a year-round Christian organization that supports kids and youth ages 7 to 18 living in high-risk and vulnerable situations. We offer summer camps in July and August with a variety of program options, evening campfires with live music and encouraging speakers. Here we have regular large group connection events, and our connection workers host weekly meetings with students. There is a significant need in our city and province for safe places for kids to learn, grow, and build relationships in a positive community. Many have found this safe place at Shiloh's camps and connection events. They become part of the Shiloh family, and for some, they feel genuine love and hope for the first time in their lives. Join us in providing hope for the next generation.
Just so you are aware, I am going through some dental stuff, so yes, I don't have front teeth right now. It was really awesome at Halloween to be a hockey player, and my kids loved it. It's not awesome anymore. But I've got a few months to go, and so that's just what it is. You know, why Shiloh? You know, if you look around, and Jeff's talked about it, and Andrew and Lori have talked about it, there's just so much abuse, abandonment, neglect, and heartache within our city. And you may be sitting here or watching online and you're like, man, I connect with some of those words. I just want to say this is like The project is such a great place that if you ever need prayer, someone to talk to, there's a safe place to try to, talk to someone, work through some of that. And so they're just here for you. But at Shiloh, we're looking and do provide avenues for kids and youth ages 7 to 17 to really experience hope, encouragement, and unconditional love. And as you saw in the video, a couple of ways that we do that is through a summer camp. And the second way is through our Connections follow-up program. And so we would love for you to be part of that. Whether through volunteering, but really to play a role in impacting someone's life. If you've never got the chance to sit across from someone and share your story, hear about their story, and just share about Christ, Shiloh's a great place to do that. So often we can look around and say, what can I do tangibly to impact those around me? And Adeara is great. Youth Rise is great. Shiloh's great. It's really about taking that step and getting out there and really being Jesus. So ways that you can join with us and partner with us are through volunteering in the summertime. Still not sure what that's going to look like this summer. Through donating with us, partnering financially. And a way that we really value support is through prayer. Pray for the kids and the youth of our city that are just going through some challenges in their lives, that they need God to intervene. And you know what? I think through that time of prayer, God's going to call you and show you how you can also make a difference. And that's what it's about. It's about us coming together to alleviate suffering, like Jeff has said, in our city. And tonight, just a few ways that you've heard of ways that you can do that. And so thank you for listening to us. Thank you for considering how you can become part of what's going on. But really, thanks for just being and willing to make a difference in those around us.
And obviously they're doing work in the trenches, and it's hard work. And so I would encourage, we're going to talk about it in a second, but be praying for these people, be praying for these organizations. It's not easy work, but it is important work, and it's work worth doing. And so how do we respond though, right? Here's a couple of opportunities, here's a couple of examples of organizations we partner with because we value their vision. We align with them in a lot of ways. We see them as an example of how we can be Jesus to Edmonton and the world around us, right? But here's my challenge. It's easy to walk away from this conversation tonight with motivation, being excited. I would gather that you'll be more aware of what you drive past and what you see on social media in the next couple of days or even on the way home today. But beyond that, what are we going to do? Because it's so common to go home and kind of get caught up in the day-to-day of what's happening. The realities around us, the pandemic, the news cycle, there's always something new to be offended by. There's always something new that needs, frankly, attention. But how are you going to step in out of your comfort zone, be willing to cost something, be willing to lose something to make a difference in the world around you? So I got a couple of steps, and they gave us actually a couple of really good ones as well that mirror this as well. But number one is this: how do we alleviate suffering in the world around us? Number one, you got to identify the need. I've been making a couple of jokes or hammering against that being the biggest thing, but it is the first thing. You have to identify the need. Realize what is there. Be offended by it. If you don't see the problem, we'll never make a change in it. So don't be blind. Don't put on your blinders. Don't just keep going day to day. Oh, I have school, I have online school, I have to do this, my family, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whatever. There's always an excuse to have your time and your attention taken away from what's happening around you. Identify it. Write it down. If you have a physical Bible, then write it down in there or put it on your mirror. I don't know, whatever, your wallpaper on your screen, something to remind you of something that you care about enough to make a difference in it. Number two is this: be willing to give your time. We always, money's a big deal, but some people have unlimited money. Every human on earth has the same amount of time, whether you're Bill Gates or Jeff Kiers or whoever, I don't know, anyone in this room, we all have the same amount of time, currency. Give your time. Be willing to do something. Be willing to give a weekend for one of these causes. And obviously right now it's not really easy to do that. There's a lot of restrictions in the whole world, so there are things that we can't do that we would like to do. But as we open up, we are going to be giving, through the project, opportunities to partner with these organizations and perhaps some other ones as well that are doing great things in Edmonton too. So maybe we'll have a team go out and work on a specific need, or small groups. If you're in a small group, we're going to be mobilizing to do things with these organizations. But here's a thought. Don't wait for us. You don't have to wait for me to tell you what to do, because your heart should dictate where you go. And if you care about these types of things, then maybe you need to talk to one of these organizations. Go to the website, go talk to them outside after, keeping your 6-foot distancing. But we're a year in, we shouldn't have to say it, but I have to. But go and do it. This should be the lens we live our whole life through. In every situation, we shouldn't just be trying to wait for somebody to say, here's a problem, here's a solution. Be the solution in every conversation, in every moment you have on earth, because Jesus was. Be willing to lose social clout. Be willing to cost money, to do whatever it takes to change the world around you. It's good for us to do this, organized together, but you still need to be able to do it on your own. And maybe you're thinking, man, Jeff, there's this, you haven't even touched on the most important issue to me. There's this thing happening right now, and none of these organizations directly impact it. You're probably right. So what are you going to do about it? Come talk to us. We'll see how we can partner together. The project wants to help Edmonton, so we'll do that. But are you willing to step up and start something? Every one of these 3 organizations started because somebody saw a need and said, we're going to do something about it. And as I hear, you're the generation that's willing to do that. So are you willing to back it up? And we'll help with that. We'll be a part of that. We'll partner as much as humanly possible. Number 2 is this, obviously give financially. Go to the website, or like we said, every time you give through the project, through donations here, you're partnering. An amount always goes to these organizations, as well as a lot of other great things that are happening around Edmonton. And we'll be talking about those continually as we go. And here's, again, one that probably gets undervalued, but it is monumentally important. It's prayer. We focus so much all over the world, right? But the fact is, there's major issues happening overseas, and I don't think there's much we can do. I think it's good to give to organizations globally. There is ways to give money. If you can, when we're able to go and help out and travel places, those are all good things. But in reality, sometimes we get so caught up in the world around us that we can't even clean up our own backyard. It's almost like we put this thing in front of us that's too big, and I talked about that a lot tonight. But there's one thing we can do globally, and that's go to God with prayer. We believe that the same God, the same Jesus that was able to heal leprosy, heal blindness, heal all these different things, is the same God we worship today. That's why we're here. And we know that when we pray, he steps out and he makes changes. Not always in the timing we want, not always in the way we would want it to be, but we know he cares and he has the power to change situations. So pray. There's things happening in Myanmar, and there's things happening, in Europe right now. There's unrest all over the world. There's again, we can pick, and I can't go there right now, but it doesn't mean we get to step away from that either and just say, I'm only worried about Edmonton. The most important thing you can do is pray, locally and globally, because that's what we care about. That's what Jesus would do. That's what we're trying to do, is live a Jesus-based life. And the way we make a change is by that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sing a couple of songs. We're going to sing to God. It's one of the ways we worship him. But I want you to be thinking, what is that thing that you can step out and do? What is that thing? What is that situation that breaks your heart? What is that organization you need to email or talk to after, or whatever it is? What is that thing that you need to do to help us alleviate in suffering and injustice in our city and our world around us?
Here I am, down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. Find me here, Lord, as you draw me near. I'm desperate for you, desperate for you. and I surrender. Drench my soul as mercy and grace unfold. I hunger and thirst. be without your love? Where would I be without your grace? You lifted me up upon a rock and carried me to a safer place. With an ocean of fear in front of me, you have split the sea in two. And through all my anxious thoughts and wavering, I can always count on you.
Where would I be without your love? Where would I be without your grace? Like rivers that find their way to sea,
God, my friend. You're my God, my friend. You're my God, my friend.
So God, I just pray for all of us here right now. These words that we sing where we talk about how we surrender ourselves to you, we surrender our lives to you. God, I pray that they would be more than just words. I pray for all of us that when it comes to living out our faith, I pray that it would be backed up by our actions. That when we talk about caring for the poor, when we talk about caring for those who are struggling right now in our surrounding communities, in our city, the people that maybe we walk by every single day and we ignore them, or we never give them a second look. I pray, God, that we would begin to truly be your hands and your feet in our city, in Edmonton, to those who just need help, to those who are so broken and are so lost, and they're just looking for peace. They're looking for a light. They're looking for something to put their hope and their trust in. God, I pray that we truly, as your church, would really live out what you teach and what you're telling us to do. And I pray that you'd give us an openness to really listen to what you're calling us to do when it comes to that. And I pray, God, that you would just give us the courage to take that step, even if it means a certain level of sacrifice, or even if it means it's going to be really difficult and it's going to be really hard and maybe even uncomfortable for us sometimes. I pray that we would be willing to be uncomfortable for those who need help. And God, I just thank you for just all the organizations that are already doing that kind of work in the city, the people that we heard from tonight. But help us to truly be your hands and your feet, God. It's our prayer tonight. Lord, we just thank you for this time. And it's in your name we pray.